Don't ever underestimate people. Good afternoon. I think I have a fascinating story to share with you today. We have a homeless situation in Seattle, and they've managed to just really confound the authorities, and the citizens are angry, and I find it absolutely fascinating. Maybe you will too. Let's jump into the story. We're going to try the same thing we did yesterday with the notes on the different page, see how that goes. And here we go. So it says, it's a double-decker RV. Seattle residents fume after a homeless person parked in affluent Seattle neighborhood builds a shack on top of a vehicle that's clearly not going anywhere soon. And so there's the little bullet points, but let's just get into it. It says, a recreational vehicle parked on the streets of Seattle with a makeshift plywood shanty built on top is infuriating neighbors as the city struggles with an epidemic of homelessness. It says residents of the Ballard neighborhood first noticed the construction of the rustic second story last week and fear it could topple on a passing car or on a pedestrian, according to a TV station there. And so let's take a look at the Ballard neighborhood. Maybe it's in the slums. So let's go right here. Oh, 850,000, 995,000, $1.5 million. Huh. Not bad. Not bad. Look at that, $1 million, 6 bedrooms, 3 baths. Interesting. Interesting. So let's go back here. It says it's called a shack. A female living inside the classic Winnebago F-17 explained to the outlet, declining to answer further questions. It's good that someone in the RV can answer questions about the design and structure. I think that's wonderful. I'm just blown away by this. Residents of the affluent neighborhood, which I think it must be, which is filled with upscale bars and boutique shops, say their streets are now lined with RVs and tent encampments and blame city leaders for failing to address the issue. We feel like they have more rights than us. I mean, to go up on our house to add in a story, we would have to have several permits, the neighbor said. And then, they feel like the homeless have more rights than the citizens because they do. 100%. In this situation, they're allowed to build and you're not. It's fantastic. It says Imbler Bremer said that he had reported the makeshift double-decker to City Hall, but has so far received no response. And when you report something to City Hall and they do nothing, what do? Does this increase your faith in government? They do not stand up for you in your time of need. Now, understand that this is happening thousands of times a year across the United States. I mean, this is it. You're taught that if you have a problem with something in your city, that you should call the municipality and they will work to resolve the issue. Well, it turns out that's not true. Not true at all. It says, complicating matters. City officials seem perplexed about who has oversight authority and what ordinances the haphazard construction might be violating. To my knowledge, I have never seen anything like this, a spokesman for the city's Department of Transportation admitted. How is this allowed to stay up? I mean, what in the world? Never having seen it before, I can understand that there's an issue here of figuring out what law to apply, but there's got to be something on the books. Are you telling me that you can go anywhere in the United States and you can build on top of an RV that's parked and like no one's going to say anything and that's going to be totally okay? Some business owners have resorted to blocking off street parking with large boulders, drawing threats of fines and citations from city officials. And so the city refuses to enforce the law, and the citizens take the law in their own hands and are threatened with fines. This is backwards, and it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it's just crazy. In Ballard, residents say that the RVs now line both sides of the streets, now parked with impunity with the knowledge that they cannot be towed. The makeshift double-decker is behind Rubens Brew and Fremont Brewing Company, a high-traffic area surrounded by several residential streets. I want the city to go to them and say they have to take it down. And she said, that's the owner of the business, said she feared that the lax enforcement could embolden other RV owners in the areas to build similar structures. I mean, honestly, is it going to take that thing falling over, then we do something, she asked. And this poor shop owner tried the safety route. That's a very interesting argument that I've seen over and over again. Usually the best argument to get something done is safety. It's classic. It's the classic thing. But how can one defend no safety? Like, how do you defend that? And you can't. We all want safety, right? And it's situations like this. Homeless, by definition, is not safe. Therefore, it's okay if they're doing something unsafe because they're already in an unsafe space. So by very nature of them being unsafe in the first place, they're allowed to continue to be unsafe no matter what they do. It's very, very fascinating. It's one of the only arguments I've ever seen that beats safety. Seattle has, and then it says Seattle has more than 11,700 homeless people, the third largest homeless population in the nation, second only to New York City and Los Angeles. Meanwhile, the city is struggling with an increase in violent crime and dire shortage of police officers following mass resignations from the force. And why are police leaving the force in Seattle? What could possibly be the reason? Is it low pay? Is that it? It says so far this year last year homicides in Seattle jumped 68% with 52 murders in 2020 compared to 31 in 2019. So far this year, there's been 31 murders in the city, putting Seattle on pace to exceed 2019 levels. It says the Seattle Police Department is still reeling from a 17% budget cut following a push to defund the police last year, and nearly 300 cops have quit since the start of 2020. Democrat mayor, I don't know what it has to do with her being a Democrat, but anyway, Jenny Durkin addressed the crisis at a July 28th press conference saying, as a city, we cannot continue on this current trajectory of losing police officers. Over the past 17 months, the Seattle Police Department has lost 250 police officers, which is the equivalent of over 300,000 service hours. We're on a path to losing 300 police officers. And last week, she announced that all Seattle police officers would be required to get vaccines for COVID-19, a mandate that led to fears of more resignations. And it sounds from this article, just what I'm reading, that the city is hostile to its police department. That's from the article. Maybe it's not true. I don't know. I don't live in Seattle. So here's the thing for me. I'm not even sure that with the police department adding more people, anyone in government wants to get rid of the homeless issue. I think they like it. You can always get funding for homeless issues. And when the homeless take up residence in the more expensive parts of town, even better, because those residents can spend more to solve a problem that isn't going to get solved. How can this be allowed to happen in a major U.S. city? What is the ideology that says that this treatment of the homeless is virtuous? Some have drug issues, some have mental issues, and to use them as political pawns is one of the more disgusting things I've seen in my lifetime. Look at the ingenuity and intelligence of the homeless. They are so resourceful. They purchased an RV for shelter, parked it in a spot where they knew they could not be towed, and then they built on top of it. This is a wonder of the human spirit. And yet city leaders, the judicial branch of the state of Washington, look like absolute fools because they aren't able to figure out a way to do anything about this problem. What will it take to solve this problem? Will those wealthy citizens have to move somewhere else and let the homeless take over the whole area? How does that help the tax base? This seems like a very serious problem, and it also seems like the government is unserious about solving it. And understand, homelessness is a serious issue, but you can't have that serious issue compound into more issues with your citizenry. It's possible to help the homeless and support your citizens in a functioning government. Immediate action should be taken. The homeless issue is a big one. If you get homeless encampments in a particular part of town, in a particular neighborhood, they'll destroy property values immediately. Nobody wants to live in that situation, and yet we do have a responsibility in a powerful nation to do something with our homeless. I mean, there's no question. But to allow an RV to be parked continuously on the street, and then be able to build on top of that with no repercussion, it's just not. It's not the sign of a functioning government. It's a sign of weakness, and I'm pretty disheartened by it, to be honest with you. But that's what I have. What do you think? I mean, some people are going to say that the homeless, I guess, deserve to have every right to be parked on the street, I guess. And others will say, they should be removed. I don't know. Let me know in the comment sections below. With that, I'm going to head on out. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I'll catch you on the next one.